Yeah. I've heard two different things, and then I heard that there's different information coming out. And I was like, oh.
You are live, Tara?
All this hearing is activated for February 27, 2025 to order. And we have the roll call, please. Present.
Vice Chair Pierce.
Present.
Member Watts.
That's you.
Member Truth.
Present.
Member Beckler.
Present.
You have a point.
Thank you. First thing, consider as approval of the agenda.
Chair, yes, we have one more administrative matters of communications to share. And that the staff, we will share the
Code update information. And that would be item B. Would now be item B.
Moved and seconded, all in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion carried. Thank you. Next is the approval of minutes. For having none, we will move on to matters from the floor. Having none, we will move on to old business. Having none, we will move on to new business. First item is case number 2025-9905. Chelsea Winter, applicant, requests approval for listing as an archaeologist for the Riverine Trail Suburban Archaeological Review District on the city of Santa Fe list of approved archaeologists and historians. Thank you for your staff report, Paul. Anything to add to that?
No, Chair. Thank you.
Thanks before us, they'll have to be you have
Noticed that my chart didn't have the specific listed experience. I noticed that an hour before arriving. The curriculum vitae says the days of leadership that I have approved over the past year before working here, and my total days that I, according to my CV, is 450 of leadership roles.
Done a lot of field work for oil companies, and it seems like there's a lot of trenching or boring that you've overseen. Is that right? Okay. And I'm guessing that that would sort of apply for a lot of PMM overview. That's really all I thought. He's relevant. I don't really know how the city she has a lot of experience, all that experience. One question, and you don't have to answer it because it doesn't really matter for these proceedings. We're for you, not the company you work for. But I was curious, who do you work for?
I currently work for Search,
Okay.
Southeastern Archaeological Research. but I started out working for Lone Mountain Archaeological Services in southeast New Mexico, and I primarily did pedestrian survey for them. I've also overseen some excavations on Mescalero properties for SWCA as well. They're local, so.
The only reason I ask is that I don't think search has ever, or at least not very frequently, done work in Santa Fe. Should we expect that? Is your hope that's gonna change?
Hopefully, yes.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying. I don't have any.
Well, sir, we have to get you sworn
My
in.
apologies.
We can swear you in if
Okay.
you wish to say something. You have to be sworn in.
Please raise your right hand. State your name and address for the record.
Stephen W. Yost, 613 Fort Street.
Thank you. Do you solemnly declare and affirm that the testimony you have in record to this item shall be the truth, nothing but the truth, to do this as the trigger?
Yes.
Thank you. The chair has been sworn in.
You can now.
I apologize for just interjecting, but, I search was appointed by, CLS, who also needs to be they are.
I went upstairs and I feel like
All right, the hungry love the way they. Member Beck.
How many hours or days are required for, listing in our suburban river trails, archaeological review district?
And can you put a number on that?
Chair, members of the committee, in the code in 14-2.7 for the Archaeological Review Committee, under I believe 6 or under 6 or E, it doesn't state a time of experience. The ARC has purview to show that the applicant holds a master's degree, is listed on the SHPO directory as a principal investigator, project director, or a supervisory archaeologist or crew chief, has shown 2 years of experience of project directing with at least 6 months in the Southwest. Now, it doesn't give a time frame for either of the 3 districts. That is determined by the ARC.
2 years,
2 years of directing projects.
of leadership,
Yes,
and 6 months in the Southwest,
yes.
mostly Southwest. Like,
Arizona, West Texas, Southern Colorado, Utah. things like this.
Sorry. I know a moment ago, you stated the total number of days you have in supervisory capacity.
for the town.
No, at large, total.
Oh,
We're looking for the 2-year question.
I believe, so on my CV, I have my leadership, because I've been with the, in the lead capacity for the past 2 years. But I've always had,
The Iowa, places like that.
But the number you mentioned just a bit ago was in excess of 400.
Yeah, 450 for here,
Which.
and then I only counted for here.
If you do a real basic breakdown, 200 years.
In Southwest.
Yeah, close, even just in New Mexico.
And then it looks like you started using the word lead in 2022.
Yes, so that's in relevance to my title at Search. And crew chief supervisor was my title at Lone Mountain and TRC Search.
Two things.
Yeah.
One, I know this is just terminology, but somehow or other, everybody has to learn that because you work for somebody who has a permit doesn't mean you have a permit. So your statement that you hold and maintain state permits in New Mexico is not.
Really?
Search hold a permit. It's an entity, not a person. Here we're talking about listing a person, not an entity. So we don't care who you work for. If we're gonna say that you are on the list, you're on the list. And you can work for, you can work for search, you can work for TLC, you can work for anybody. It's a difference.
Right.
So
Oh,
not to
so,
make too fine a point of it, but you should not say that you have a permit. If
oh,
you,
I should have
in
said
your own name, do not have a permit.
I should have said I'm permittable or.
Or listed on a permit for,
That's the best
Oh.
way. You're listed on a permit because your entity has to list you as personnel
Okay,
and you have to be on the SHPO directory.
right.
So.
I am on the SHPO directory. I just checked before arriving. Sorry about that. I can remove that.
Sure, a lot of people.
well, the distinction is that you pay for a BLM permit, that doesn't travel with you when you leave an organization's system. Being listed for the city of Santa Fe, doesn't matter who you work for, we're serving you, not your organization.
Okay. Right.
Very pedantic about it. We're listing you. We are not permitting.
Yes.
Because we do not issue permits.
Right. Thank you for the
Well,
clarification.
really. The other thing, I take it that the actual analyses of protein
Mhm.
were performed in said laboratory by one Michael Stork.
No, they're performed by me. Michael Thorpe was my photographer. In my.
Just trying to
For the
clarify why photo was used by permission.
That was a formality. So all of the photos have to be my own original work basically. And since I had him as a photographer, I couldn't use a photo without getting their permission. That was only for the Maryland. So,
That makes sense.
but I performed all of the laboratory work for that and collected all the samples and cataloged them. And they were from Steve's collection. Yeah.
And one final question. It seems like in the discussion of one of the particular artifacts, there was mention of choosing to sample this end and that end and not the side. Is there a logic to not including the side?
So I sampled them mostly for, it's not just like the sides, so, or the ends, or rather, it'll collect the bottoms and the top. So it'll pull proteins from both the tip and the base of the projectile point. So I chose to, instead of soaking all of them, I was like, well, if I could get a sample of projectile points that I could test for different proteins on each end of a projectile point, I chose to do that, which I thought it could have been interesting if I had different proteins from the tip versus the haft. Let's say it was hafted with agave, but the tip showed positive for squirrel or something like that, then that could have been interesting for my study. It didn't show fruitful, but it was costly, expensive. So
That's going to be my follow-up question.
It was.
Because I assumed it was cost that limited your sampling.
I tried to offset the cost by working for Linda. And so I cleaned her lab, organized things, I ran through client samples, I did everything I could to offset this cost. I still owe her $2,000, $2,100. So.
If we can find someone who wins the lottery, I hope they will give you some money, because I'd love to go back and assume all those samples are as pristine as they ever were. I would love to sample all the edges.
Yeah.
All,
Yeah.
because I'm thinking of specific tools frequently found in the Texas area that have such a multiplicity of working edge angles that you could have 8 or 9 different uses on the same tool. Therefore,
Right.
proteins present on different parts of the tool would be really interesting.
Very few of them were sampled versus tip versus haft. So there's photos in there that'll show you like that we suspended them, the tip and the haft, but pretty much all of them were pulled off.
Sorry.
Yeah. I do have those samples
it's
in the freezer, so.
Fascinating
The
research.
lab.
Great job.
That is all remains, so someone.
Okay,
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, in case 9905, I move that we approve, Chelsea Winter for listing on the approved list of archaeologists for the rivers and trails and suburban.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank
You
you.
are now listed, and just now that we're done, I can say that I can personally testify to the fact that search has worked in New Mexico in other capacities than digging ditches on the southeast. I mean, 8 and 10 persons worked for me across the street in the cemetery, and 2 of those same persons worked for me again in Las Vegas, and the cemetery that is under the university campus. So there's a fairly extensive number of person days represented by all that. And I appreciate you all. Okay.
Thank you.
You can go,
Thank you, everyone.
whatever you want to do.
Okay,
You can stay or go. It's up to you.
so how long do your proceedings typically go?
This will probably run
Okay.
another 40 minutes.
I'd like to stay and see how your proceedings are, and that's all right.
Please do.
Thanks.
Next item of new business, case number 2025-9942. Paul Duran, applicant, requests approval for listing as an archaeologist and historian for the historic downtown river and trails and suburban archaeological review districts. The city of Santa Fe list of approved archaeologists and historians. We have the draft report prepared by Amanda. Anything to add to the staff report?
No, Chair.
Then we have an applicant, and in this case, because you're wearing a different hat than you normally wear, we are going to need to be sworn in.
State your name and address for the record, please.
Paul Duran, 999 Calle Jansen, Santa Fe, New Mexico, 87507.
Thank you. Do you solemnly declare and affirm that the testimony you have in reference to this item shall be the truth and nothing but the truth and do this under the penalties of perjury?
Yes.
Thank you. Chair, you can go ahead.
Thank you.
Thank you. The floor is yours if you need to expound.
Chair Eck, members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity. We humbly come before you to show my CV and my work, to share with you the direction we're moving forward. City has pulled permit from the state for monitoring and survey investigations. So Stephen Gilbert and myself will be working directly together with all in City of Santa Fe interdepartmental staff, wastewater, water, parks and rec, stormwater, all entities. So we're getting everybody in the city together, and we are working together in a direction that we can do in-house as best we can for the archaeological monitoring projects, survey, site updates. We have some studies coming downrange, a SECIA study, research, and so forth. So in moving in that direction, I as staff am coming before the ARC for approval. So we know our baseline of where we can work. And so then we can move forward on that. We need a place to start from, and then we can build on top of that. We're taking on the responsibility of being more accountable for our own archaeological sites within the city. And doing that in the best and thoughtful manner as possible. We still will need the state. We'll still need the OAS. We still will need other entities and support. And I know Stephen Gilbert has Paulus and some other archaeologists and support given that the city of Santa Fe is an archaeological site within itself, we will need that support, but we're working towards that and moving in the right direction. And at the last CPRC hearing I did, we were, approved for the permit. So, and I did hold the permit previously in 2019 to 2022 for the city of Santa Fe. And so now we're just trying to build on top of that, what we already started working on. So I stand here for questions. Thank you.
Committee members, Member Bechtel.
I'm confused by the chart. Which are the leadership months that you're counting? 'Cause some of them are prep, some of them are survey.
Yes, ma'am. So in the chart's breaking down on the first chart. So you have position held, the survey, excavation, human burial excavation, laboratory analysis, and report prep. So it breaks down in such manner. So
which hours do I count for supervisor in leadership role?
at the very bottom of the 6th page, you would count,
Which number?
you would count the 24 total months by type of archaeological
So
activity.
you're saying that all of these are supervisory?
No, ma'am.
63.25?
No, ma'am.
Okay.
Not at all. I
Okay.
would say a handful of years of supervisory.
Okay. So can you clarify which one I should count for the 24 months?
Yes, ma'am. I would say
I think the break was nicely between page 4 and page 5. That your president did the same. Everything above page 4 is supervisor, and no, not quite. Everything oddball, but and everything below is mostly technician. But no, I don't see like a total that is supervisory as opposed to a total with non-supervisory. So we'd have to do some calculator work here. Right, I was trying to do some quick adding in my head, and if these are all expressed in months, I come up with something on the order of 270 days. Translating from days to months. What I'm trying to do is think about the 2 years. It is hard to tell without the subtotal.
I would say from 2017, I was listed as a supervisory crew chief archaeologist. 2019, I was listed as a principal investigator, project director on the SHPO directory. In 2019, I was holding the permit for the city, doing all the start to finish, all the projects. So as a supervisory archaeologist for the city of Santa Fe in 2017, 2018, into 2019, 2020, and then I would say within those 4 years, give or take.
Calendar is easier to understand.
True. Maybe we start at 1 and for
I'm asking because we have not given any leeway for that number
right.
in my experience in the year or so that I've been on this board. And that's why I'm asking that question.
Yes,
Because
ma'am.
I don't know, I can't tell, because I don't really know what you're doing. Because I don't do that. So maybe somebody else could interpret that for me, or maybe it doesn't matter because you have so many years that it doesn't need to be broken down into what I'm asking for.
No,
Or what the code asks for, not me personally, but what the code asks for.
Sharak, member Bechtel, I think it does matter. And to be consistent and to share all the total months on the project. And there's a breakdown at the very end where it says total months on project.
Right, I see that, but I just don't know which one's count.
Doing my quick math, so checking myself, I actually come up with over 300 days supervisory role. That's actually made. Now, there's more supervisory stuff listed just after what I thought was the end, so I'm sorry. That may be closer than I just did it, and without actual adding machinery. That's my boring brain to make addition without errors in the paper. For 400 days.
And then the bottom of it, it says the conversion is 240 days equals 12 months. So we need 480 days to get to 24 months. You were saying we're at 400.
That's my estimate, but we're in the vicinity of 400.
Mm-hmm.
Something to know. But doing a quick sum of just the final column, the total number of months by project, when you were a supervisor, I'm just well in excess of 36 months. So the days and the months somehow don't add up. Or not. But we're just wrong.
We might just be
Yeah.
reading the table wrong.
Yeah. Paul, you've been listed on the city directory for suburban and trails before. Yep. No, not at all.
Chair Vice Chair Pierce, no, sir.
Okay. Aside from the general requirement for the 2 years and 6 months in New Mexico, we also have a rule of thumb for at least 6 years or 6 months of experience in downtown Detroit district on its own to be qualified for that district. So can you address how you would get to that number?
Chair Vice Chair Pierce, yes, sir. I believe I meet the 6 months in the downtown. Not excessively over, but I do meet the 6 months. My first work was under, now we're talking about 6 months experience. I worked with, upon being hired by the City of Santa Fe's Water Division, I was working directly under OAS under Dr. Glenn and Karen Winning. So then the first monitoring project I was placed on was at Center Street with Karen. And then from there, I went with Jim Moore at the excavation of the county courthouse. Then from there, we started working towards I would write the monitoring plans, go out, do the monitoring, write the final report. We then had the Guadalupe project. I was on that project start to finish. And that project has been really in a tragic state right now. And given kind of a vacuum that has happened in the last couple of years, that report has not been finalized. I know the archaeologists are working on that, to finalize that. And I was on that, almost 100 days. And the Camino Rancheros, Camino del Monte Sol, that whole area for all the water lines in that area, right around 50, give or take. I was out there for, 6 months, but given the time frame and that we count for the water lines and the project being out in the for experience. But in that time frame, in the handful of years at the water division, reviewing and monitoring, surveying, and the work here, I've been able to see all the different types of archaeological cultural material in the city of Santa Fe, from Santa Fe gravels all the way up to current modern historic. I've been able to identify, document, record, and write monitoring plans, reports, and so forth, and do the analysis with OAS, because the city staff was limited at that time. It was just myself. But we didn't do anything outside of the ARC's approval, the ARC's knowing, because we as staff, we look at the ARC as our direct authority. So we're never going outside of anything that you do not know that we're doing. So I do believe that for the downtown, I have that experience.
Thank you, Paul.
Yes, sir.
Once again, I'm trying to do numbers in my head and listen at the same time, but I came up with somewhere in the vicinity of 36 months. Supervisory time, all documented in this. That's about what I got to look at the margin of error, me doing math in my head. Which is something to do, and this is part of the 6 months is also demonstrated. All been doing in my head. Follow up. I think I already took all my shots out of turn, so. Okay. Well, it was sort of the synergistic, memory tricks.
Staying on this accounting, does supervisory time count for writing reports?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Just to clarify that in my head. The other thing I want is more of a clarification of why you're doing that. Now, the city is going to take on more of an archaeological responsibility for city projects. Is that what you're saying? But there will still be other projects that other companies will take over. But they will also maybe assist the city on some of these larger city projects, whatever they may be, like a park somewhere.
Chair Eck, Member Treese, that's correct. So we, as the city of Santa Fe, have several contracts for several different contractors to help us with our work. We're trying to mitigate several contracts given funding to support in-house. So if we can keep this in-house as best we can, we have more control of the streamline of water, utilities, parks and rec, maintenance care of our inner city departments and the ease of projects. When we have to go out for bid, we got to get 3 bids. Then we go with the best bid, hopefully. That may postpone projects for a year. That may push, but if we can streamline projects, initially when I was first hired in 2017 with the water division, we were streamlining projects. One project, I would come here every 6 months with a monitoring plan, back to back to back, and then we would just go project to project to project. We'd present our reports here with the ARC and move on to the next one. We would save hundreds of thousands of dollars that way. There are instances where we need the support of OAS, the Office of Archaeological Studies, and other archaeological firms when we come across inadvertent discoveries. We don't have the manpower or the materials in order to provide that support. Bless you. And so we will need to contract out with other entities when we come across that. And currently we have 2 contracts in place right now. One with OAS and another firm to support those efforts. Right now we have our Parks and Rec department doing, the ASECIA work, work at Fort Marcy. And instead of going to the Parks and Rec director, going out and hiring a contracted archaeologist, they can come to the Historic Preservation Division, utilize myself and the Water Division archaeologist, Stephen Gilbert. We can go out there and monitor a 1-day project, a 2-day project, whatever that may be, if necessary. Some of these projects don't necessarily meet the linear threshold. They don't meet the code in order that causes them to come in here. But if there's a water line bust or a sewer main bust here on Paseo or here on Guadalupe, we'll go out there, document, record. Most likely they're associated with sites around them. We'll update the sites and then we'll just move on to the next. We have that quite extensively. And what we want to do is we want to keep everybody accountable for what the work that they're doing within the city and notifying them that they have assets or avenues that they can do that within the city. So then they're not doing it without telling anybody, but also they tell us, and then we have a little more understanding what's going on, and then we can apply preservation practices when necessary and need be.
You don't have accidents, emergencies, hopefully, is the theory.
Right. No, and I'm thinking of emergency like water line busts or emergency subsurface projects.
I think archaeological stuff that we have to fix up.
Right. And I think that's the whole reason why they hired me from the very beginning at the Water Division. You had the engineers going out there doing the monitoring. And that was not in the best interest of the city, right? You want a qualified archaeologist out there who knows what they're doing.
So my understanding is part of this is a cost savings for the city as well, until such point where, you know, you might have to call in somebody else for something bigger that gets turned up.
Yes, and member chiefs, I think also thinking if the city has an in-house archaeologist, use him. Let's use him and the in-house archaeologists that we do have.
Right.
Let's use them in a manner that's best for the city. And that's the preservation of our cultural sites.
So I guess, if you permitted to ask land use a question?
I think you can ask staff any question you feel like.
There will be, you know, just say in 5 years, or a year and a half, or half a year, our city archaeologist gets a new job, and then will we be looking for another archaeologist, and will we be looking at like a list like this, going, well, this person isn't working right now, maybe we should hire them? Is that, I don't understand. I'm kind of curious as to, you know, sequencing of, what do you call, hiring, I guess, is what it would boil down to.
So Chair Eck, Member Treese, what we're trying to do is formalize the role of the archaeologist. Previously, it's been hired as a senior planner in the Historic Preservation Division and does not necessarily require, it requires a knowledge of archaeology, but does not require an archaeologist. So, but we do have a great opportunity to leverage, somebody who is trained professionally in archaeology. We would have to create a new job description for an archaeologist for the city, and I don't think in the realm of reality that that's going to happen anytime soon. So it would be just a senior planner position, but Mr. Duran expressed an interest in identifying ways where we can be more efficient. And in the past, when I was in historic preservation, I actually managed some of those reports, and I'm not a trained archaeologist. So the position itself does not demand a certification, but in this case, it's a benefit.
know how, I still don't know how, I mean, I appreciate that answer. It seems like we are taking advantage of the situation right now. But I think in cases like that, you know, we also get used to the idea that we have that specialty position. And to lose a person that we've grown accustomed to it. It's like if I lose a lead carpenter, you know, or I lose a supervisor, what am I going to do now? You know, I go on the job for a while and try to figure out, you know, where we are with the project. Well, you know, but I'm still going to be looking for another supervisor or superintendent. And I'm going to look for somebody that really matches up with the other guy that just left. You know, and so you want somebody who is skilled in home building, not in skyscraper building. So I'm just trying. I think it's an excellent idea. I'm just trying to figure out if there's going to be, you know, how that works here with us, because you said, and I appreciate, you know, like we don't have to get 3 bids and, you know, take all this time. And, but you have a skill set, and somebody else might not have your skill set that has your job, and that sort of makes me nervous a little bit.
I would just interject that we're listing an individual, not an entity. We're not blessing the city of Santa Fe and its permit. It got that from the CPRC.
Yeah.
We are only speaking about whether or not an individual is listable. And recent past have lots of people who were permitted with their entities and listed with their entities with the CPRC who are not listed here because of items identified by members of the committee. So if in the happenstance you mentioned, he or both archaeologists leave, the city will be looking for more archaeology because they have one position that's definitely an archaeologist. And they'll probably be looking for another senior planner and asking for people to have archaeological qualifications. But they can't require that under that job title. It's just embellishment. So a candidate could look better if they do have, but if they are a senior planner, ACES, they can get the job and they won't have an archaeologist. And that will be right back to where we were 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Where the city hires everything done. And it all comes back through staff. It comes to the committees with it all. So. Now, just to clarify, in fact, that if listed and operating under their state permit, the city is doing its own work. The city will be bringing stuff to this committee. And if it's, as I understand it, anything the city does would also then have to go to the state for review after we have vetted it. Okay. So there's layers upon layers of oversight.
Okay. So excuse my rookiness in the position here, but I needed that clarification.
Well, I'm not certain it was all that clear. It's clear doing what the pundits lately are calling word salad. But it actually, it was all vegetables. Go ahead.
Chair Eck, Member Trees, I just wanted to let you all know sort of like what my dream is and what the budget request that I'm gonna make for, the coming year. We have a flat budget year, but one of the things that working together with water and, our team in the Historic Preservation Division is having funded with water so we could have an actual archaeologist on staff and use a job description that's not just a senior planner, but would be an archaeologist. So the goal is eventually to have somebody in that professional role only assigned to that duty. Because this is a committee and each committee deserves a specialized, trained, individual to be liaison. So, but I just can't commit to that right now. But that's one of the things that I'm working on with the, 2026 fiscal year budget.
It feels like we're straying into administrative matters here. but
Yeah.
I'm gonna go with the flow. Paul, can you do all this additional field work and still cover your administrative duties as part of your work preservation?
Chair Eck, Vice Chair Pierce, great question. Not enough hours in the day.
Yeah.
There's not. And so my key role is bringing all the city department directors together, streamlining. Stephen Gilbert's our in the field archaeologist, and I will work with him when necessary. Generally, I get called out on emergencies. He's out full time in the field. Report right, plan right, review everything ready for the ARC, CPRC, and so forth for the state, right? That's really my intentions, where the acequias, working on the acequias, site updates, helping out other departments when they need it. That's really where I would fit in. I believe that would be the goal. And we as staff, we're coming in to show you, just like Chair Eck had shared, everything needs to come to the ARC, all city projects, everything. And even us as archaeologists, we need to be vetted as well. And that's really important, because they need to know that we're qualified out there monitoring or surveying, and I don't think that was ever previously had happened. And so that is important. So we're just trying to be as transparent as possible so we can have steps moving forward. But you're right, there's not enough hours in the day for all the work that we do. But we're doing the best.
Just gonna ask you if you were bored.
Oh gosh.
He still has most of his hair.
But it's graying. It's graying quickly.
You know, it occurs to me too, something that Chairman Eck said, when you're presenting, you're wearing a different hat. So assuming we approve this going forward, we have to keep track of that, right? Are you here as, in the capacity as part of HPD, or are you presenting a case? Are you doing both in the same night, and do you need to switch chairs when you do it? I mean, there's gonna be some keeping track of what are you doing at this moment kind of thing.
And staff, Member Pierce, staff will definitely, be accountable and making sure that, we're all held accountable to that.
So the little things like not forgetting to swear them in, right?
Right.
That's important.
Right.
And the other little thing, which he insightfully anticipated when he took care of it, you wrote the memo.
Yes, sir.
Well, yeah,
And
you'll be doing that.
yes, sir. Cool. Yes. And we have,
We hope.
Mariah
Potential.
swearing in, so there's no conflict of interest there, so we're taking careful to make sure that, he can still develop and proceed with what he needs to as an archaeologist and maintain a staff level of excellence that we thrive for.
And Chair Eck, you Chair Eck and ARC members, you are the authority here for the city. And there's nothing that we do or anything that we may come across, whether even it's somebody without a permit digging down here, that we're on it. And we don't make a move unless you know about it, whether inadvertent discoveries or tertial sites that pop up out, and just, you will always be notified. You are our authority. So we look to you for guidance, direction moving forward.
and what we're,
The existence of this committee actually works to your advantage, because the one thing you cannot do is review your own work, but you won't, be doing it, will do.
right,
Yes.
Without this committee, you wouldn't have a conflict.
right. Committee members, anything else? Paul, anything else?
No, Chair.
Thank you. Then, someone willing to take a stab?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I move that in case 9942, we approve Paul Duran for listing as a qualified archaeologist for all three different districts.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. Thank you, Chair. Vice Chair. Next, case number 2025-9898. PRC, agent for the Public Service Company in New Mexico, PNM, requests approval of an archaeological monitoring report for the installation of 247 feet of subsurface electrical line at 207 Old Santa Fe Trail in the historic downtown archaeological review district. Thank you for your staff report, Paul. Anything to add to this?
No, Chair. Thank you.
All right. We have Mr. Member here, already sworn in, so you got it.
Okay, this represents the second of two old projects that were done by TRC before, my time. They were handed off to me in the fall. The first one, South Meadows, was, before the committee in January and was approved. This, was obviously the larger and more complicated project. Right? I did want to make a statement as far as this goes, that from my perspective, my staff, current staff, did a very diligent job of compiling data and putting this together. With the goal being to provide a context of what's there and what we think is there. With that said, from a professional perspective, I do have to acknowledge that I would not have agreed with the field judgments that were made when the project was originally. And I would have actually had people hit the brakes and make sure what was going on in that location when they hit what, as somebody who started their career doing colonial archaeology and early federal archaeology elsewhere in the country, kicked up artifacts that, quite frankly, were clearly early 19th century. I've discussed that with other people in TRC and other offices in the East, and they've acknowledged the same. And it was a judgment call that was made. I'm not going to take that to task, but what we have is a situation in which I certainly wouldn't recommend any to go out and dig holes and damage a resource to demonstrate what was going on there. But that I do think that this moved too fast, right, in the field at the time. And again, this is simply a matter of professional ethics that I do have to state that based on the data that were presented. And so, with that said, my staff, as far as I'm concerned, went above and beyond to compile data, find photos, find maps, and additional information to try to provide the best context we could for what was going on. We also did coordinate with PNM and prepared an HCPI form after the fact for Old Santa Fe Trail, which had not been documented previously as an HCPI. And Old Santa Fe Trail also was previously College Street / Bridge Street, as the report demonstrates, and has a lot of history going back well into the Spanish colonial period. So, so felt obliged to provide that preface in this case. I'm not criticizing anyone, but the reality is that I think this is an example of a project where it moved a bit too fast in the field.
Thank you for that. Member Trace.
I guess, a question first that starts with, well, my questions start with, it said in the report that the placement of the trench was changed.
Mhm.
And I don't know, because I wasn't here when this first went through.
Yes.
Does a change in the location of the trench have to be approved or no? No. Oh.
I think I would offer the opinion that any material change in where the trench was should have elicited extensive contact with staff to figure out which end of the elephant we're on. And then if needed guidance, staff would approach the ARC for input. If it's a minor change in where the trench is, as it moved over 3 feet from this side of the sidewalk to that side of the sidewalk, probably wouldn't have risen to the level of concern. But again, the best authority as the variation from approved plans is Starland staff in all cases.
So Chair, Member Treese, generally when the contractor's out, and this happens quite often, P&M is going to be boring downtown, and their archaeologists are on the site. They come across a 36-inch storm drain. They can't bore through it. They got to move it, and they come across some kind of water mains, or so they have to move the trench maybe 3 feet north, 3 feet south, or they gotta. Their cultural liaison, Shelby McGee, will contact staff immediately. She'll notify us. If we got to change these plans, here's our new plan, given that we came across this storm drain, or given that we came across these utilities, or whatever subsurface, a concrete culvert. So then we will talk to the archaeologist. Okay, well, you write this into your report, the changes that took place on this 3-foot change, or you had to go across the street. It would, given that they're already on the ground, they got an open trench. How do we work with them before stopping the work, come back to the ARC for approval? Well, we'll decide that in-house. Well, working with Shelby McGee, that they're archaeologists from P&M, as well as the contractor on the ground, to get this so they can keep going and get this installed. That's generally how it works with us.
My other comment here was that there's a lot of after pictures and there's a lot of really like way before pictures, which are kind of cool. But there's no pictures that are taken prior to the excavation beginning. And I guess, that would be nice just for, data.
You're absolutely correct. And not to interrupt, but in fact, the reason why they're not there is because I don't have them.
Yeah.
Again, I will stand here with full disclosure. This is the data that we had in hand. The after photos actually were taken by me in December. Which is in fact when it was confirmed that the line was in the road, not in the parking lot where it was supposed to be.
It was a surprise to you too.
And I will admit, it was a surprise to Shelby McGee at P&L, because she and I discussed it. And I asked her, can you give us the absolute final alignment? And she sent me the same one that was in the plan. And we discussed it at length, and something went awry in the field with the contractor. And so this isn't on P&M either in terms of Shelby. She was caught off guard when I pointed out that no, the line is actually clearly in the road. The couple of photos we have shows that. Right. So not to throw P&M under the bus, they actually were. Shelby was equally surprised when we brought this up. Well, something went awry somewhere in communications, but not on.
I don't. Oh yes,
I was just going to follow up on what we said about contractor. I'm not asking you to name names. But just so everyone knows, there is a contractor who went out and did the installation on behalf of P&M. Sometimes communication is difficult. If you're familiar with the term, talking to concrete.
Yeah.
Things happen.
And that has decided in residential building that they will do their own trenching and their own placement of conduit, and it's a problem. So my beef is with P&M's contractors, and that's why I wanted to see some pictures beforehand, because that repair sucks. I don't know, I mean, basically it's compromised the drainage. Because water could wash right over that sidewalk, that brick sidewalk. I'm sure those are sitting on dirt, not concrete. So, I don't know. I mean, I know the city is supposed to go back out and look at things afterwards, and I'm assuming that somebody did, but if I was a contractor on that job, I wouldn't have let the asphalt guy do that and walk away. Just, my 2 cents.
That's great. We need to hear that. That helps us. Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Member Trees.
If it passed inspection by someone, maybe someone should have a conversation with someone so that inspections are perhaps a little more goal directed, opposed to speed directed.
Well, and compromising the drainage, not only, it compromises a whole lot of stuff, because there's a bunch of stuff under there.
Yeah, and we all know that everything goes down.
But, to your report, and given that, I appreciate it. I mean, especially that picture with the dog. That was cool. But yeah, I felt like there was a whole lot of data in here. That's all I'm saying.
My leader also went to task and I said, I want something that's really robust. And sorry that goes. I would also agree, actually, since I'm down there, the contractor did a messy job. It did not take more than 10 seconds to figure out where all the different blocks in December, and that's a year later.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
Thank you. Member Beckman?
No comment. I appreciated the report.
And first,
Yeah, just a couple of quick clarifications. Cue it up here. I'm looking at plate 5.6, which is on report page 78. It's a picture of the Loretto Academy in the Rose Chapel.
Mhm.
And in the corner, there's a big red circle around something, but I couldn't find any text that explains the significance of that circle that I'm trying to highlight.
Can I see the plate?
5.6?
Yeah, plate 5.6, forgot the picture.
That is my fault, actually. There should have been an additional discussion in the caption. There is a visible historic structure sitting between the chapel. and-
Oh, those.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For that. Okay.
And that is probably the one that first likely showed up around the 1820s, but was absolutely there by the 1840s or 1850s.
And that was part of the convent.
As part of, it has a cross or a religious symbol on top of it, but my bet is actually, and I'm just speculating, that probably originally was a house that was adapted after
That's a better picture. That is a much better picture, yeah.
We talking about 5.4?
Yeah.
This one gives them, I believe this is.
Oh, that one, okay.
Yeah, because based on the data, there was, well, obviously the photo, there was a structure between where the convent was eventually placed and then the chapel. There also was a structure immediately in front of the Loretto Chapel. And
This thing here.
Yes.
The portable.
exactly. And by around 1870, that the one immediately in front was already, looks like it's in the process of collapsing. So it had been there for quite a while, at that point. And based on the various data, I would expect that we're looking, and the minimal material culture that we had, that we're looking at stuff that probably dated to the 1820s through the 1850s. And so we're talking about terminal end of the Spanish colonial and the Mexican Federalist period.
Including this rebel wall?
That actually is, at least by what I've been able to figure out, that appears to be almost like an exterior city wall that Bridge Street / College Street was running in front of. And so all of the architecture was on the other side of that. And Bridge Street / College Street is what you're seeing with that cobble found retaining wall and in the immediate absolute foreground.
You're saying the streets on the other side
Yeah.
of that?
Mhm. So that's also one of the reasons why I believe that in looking at one of the field photos, and where you can see the trench along the road, that it appears that they clipped the early road underneath of the existing road. And that's there is a little bit of a dynamic going on there in terms of not just having your HCPI, but also having what was probably the 19th century road in that location as well. We do not have the photo in the report because actually it couldn't find it in the end. But there is actually one that does show, as our profile shows, the profile along the road does show a stack of cobbles. There's at least one photo floating around of that location where it appears that was actually being done intentionally to maintain drainage. Right? So again, that's also, since they're sitting on that surface, it's consistent with that actually having been the road. And so it's all a very interesting little picture in that part of Santa Fe.
Thank you. Sure. The other question I had is, sorry, bring it back. Spinning the wheel. I'm looking at figure 7.6, which is basically the map of the HCI property, which I take to be the old road system. I noticed that the boundary that you put around that resource extends well beyond the project area. So I'm just curious how you define that boundary, how you determine that.
Can I see that? Actually, what we did in that case was simply define the HCPI as being between the two intersections, since that is the existing historic resource as opposed to necessarily an archaeological resource that's under it. And so in this case, from our perspective, it made sense rather than to just create a tiny little segments that corresponded to the trench, to take the piece that was between the two intersections of Alameda and Water. And so that's the logic.
Okay. I didn't review the actual PCPI form or it wasn't provided, that doesn't matter which. But somewhere in there, did you outline how you define?
Yeah, and I can verify that before we upload to Chris to make sure it's all.
That would be good. Yeah.
Yes.
So somebody who's viewing has an understanding of it wasn't completely arbitrary. You didn't just draw a box around something.
Yes, absolutely. And the form was reviewed by Dr. Steve Mel, now retired this morning, because he's been doing this stuff for me for years. And when I said I needed some assistance, he stepped up and reviewed the form and gave us some suggestions.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, the other comment I have is I concur, some of the decisions at the time in the field could have been better, but you guys did a really good job of making lemonade the lemons. With this report, it's well done.
Thank you.
That's all I have.
I don't have anything for you. I was just gonna ask staff, had you an idea of them wanting to move the trench so far in advance, would you have said, please wait until we can ask the ARC? Because at one end, it's darn near 50 feet of relocation. And which they meet more or less the same destination. But that seems like a really big change in
Chirac, I think consulting with Shelby and kind of seeing what they're going with, and then our own background research, looking at NIMCRIS would give us the best guidance moving forward. If it's sites there, then we would recommend Shelby come back to the ARC for approval.
May I add something? Because actually it is based on the conversation I had with Shelby, and we did discuss this after the fact, and part of the discussion was that additional training will be provided to monitors going forward so that they understand that this should have been stopped. And so it is understood on PNM's front and on Shelby D's front that the brakes should have been pressed. And indeed, we have had an explicit discussion on that subject that's with TRC, but it's not just going to be with TRC, that monitors will be provided with more direct training that when a change is happening, that needs to be relayed back to PNM immediately so that PNM can coordinate with the city.
And Mr. Yost, thank you for sharing, because Shelby's a great archaeologist.
Yeah.
She's always looking out for the best interests of the
Absolutely.
resource and how they can do the best ways moving forward. And with city staff, they're always working. She works very diligent with us, so we're aligned in ways of thinking that way too.
Absolutely. And if
So
you haven't
thank
seen
you
her
for sharing.
comments and reports, I mean,
Yeah.
she's
great.
so diligent. And so no, I don't want to convey that PNM had an issue here. She absolutely was very much caught off guard when I went back to her and said, this line isn't where you have it. And we immediately agreed this was not going to happen again, and that there be proper training so that it doesn't happen.
As an aside, Shelby is one of the people who famously works through one of the colder winters we've had here recently in said cemetery for search.
Okay,
Wow.
I've heard her in lots of things.
Yeah, there's a gold star there.
Yeah.
All right, I'm done. Someone wanna take a crack on a motion?
Yeah, Chair, I move that we approve case 9898. TRC for PNM, approval of archaeological monitoring report for 207 Old Santa Fe Trail. As submitted, so we have some corrections. As submitted.
Moved and seconded, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your thorough report.
Thank you.
Next case, 2025-9901. Chronicle Heritage, agent for the Public Service Company in New Mexico, PNM, requests approval of an archaeological monitoring plan for the proposed installation of 2,660 feet of subsurface electrical lines at 1018 Sierra del Norte in the Suburban Archaeological Review District. Thank you for the staff report. Paul, anything to add?
No, Chirac. Thank you.
Is presenter
Yes, they are, here online, one moment. Heather, you may unmute and be sworn in.
Hi, I'm Heather Salter Rogers, 10505 Hackamore Place, Southwest, Albuquerque, New Mexico. Can you hear me though?
Yes,
Yes.
thank you. Do you solemnly declare and affirm that the testimony you have in reference to this item shall be the truth and nothing but the truth, and do this under the penalties of perjury?
I do.
Thank you. Chair, she's been sworn in.
Thank you. Heather, the floor is yours if you have anything you need to add.
I don't have anything to add at this time. The plan is as stands.
Then we shall proceed. Member Pierce?
I've really just one question for clarification. I'm looking at, figure 1-3 on report page 4. The graphic showing the project area. And if you zoom in rather closely, there are, I think, 5
blue squares, which are not part of the line of the project, can I take those to be at least approximate locations for the pole boxes? I understand there are 5 pole boxes, 5 squares. Am I making the right equivalent there?
Yes, that is correct. Those are the approximate locations of the pull boxes.
Thank you. It's good to have that. Often we don't get it. They just say that they're gonna do X number somewhere along the line, which is not great. Otherwise, I don't think I have any comments.
All right, thank you. Member Becky,
No comment.
member Trees.
They're gonna bore this, right?
Correct.
What's the? Say, what's the depth of dirt there before you hit rock?
I
And
don't-
is there a contingency in what happens if they have to trench instead of bore?
That would be something that PNM would have to talk with their contractor about. I don't know that exact information. Of course, if there's any significant change, I would bring it to attention of the ARC and see. I think they're mostly gonna do it in the road, from what I can tell, because of the grade of the slope there. That's what they were telling me.
Some of it is solid.
That's a really good question though, because if you need to trench rather than bore, we would expect profile drawing with some of those trenches.
So what is is that a significant change? I mean, from my experience, they may even have problems getting those bolts 4.5 feet deep. I mean, I'm not trying to throw a hand grenade in the plan here, but you know, I'm trying to be realistic too. I mean, if it's a roadbed, that doesn't mean anything really. That means that maybe there's 6 inches of base course underneath the blacktop, but that could be sitting right on rock.
I'll leave staff the opportunity to chime in, but I think as long as the location doesn't change and go further toward the known archaeology, it might be considered just a minor change in method from boring to trenching. Might be, but staff?
Chirek, and I think in Mrs. Seltzer Rogers figure 2-1, the soils within the project area, this is giving her the idea of, okay, we have complex soils, we have different undifferentiated soils, gravels, cobbles. So this is kind of guiding her and her staff when they're out there monitoring. It'll also share with PNM crew when they're out there, okay, we're going to expect to hit Santa Fe gravels, granitic cobbles, boulders. And I agree with you. It's likely because it's kind of part of that rift, right? And so it is sandier and gravelier and granitic. However, if they were to make some kind of changes where they're moving into the direction where that site is located to the northwest or somewhere, we would request that we would have to see what they're implementing before and have a discussion with everybody to see. But generally, I think that you raise a great question, and until they're in the field actually on the ground and putting that bore, and then they know, and then once like 10 feet in and they're realizing we can't go anywhere. Oh, we're trenching now, guys. So then they got to pull permits for streets to cut asphalt, and then it's a whole nother deal.
Yeah, and it would seem to me that you might want to, or that, you know, a contractor might wanna have, wherever there's a vault, you might wanna just test drill to see what you're gonna hit.
That's a great idea. To share with the archaeologists who will be out there. I think those are really, really good ideas, member Chase.
It's all gonna.
Just call everybody's attention to page 8, third paragraph, specifically addresses the soil depth question. Soil is often found on hills and is somewhat excessively to well drained. It has a maximum depth of 30 inches, but can be as shallow as 10 to 20 inches. He's speaking from experience, and in this case, the scientific geeks at the soil survey agree. Rock is pretty close. So we'll wait and see what happens. Thank you for the clear statement of intent to survey the available space. And I thank you for the dedication expressed, but would you be running into the unhappy clutches of landowners by trying to do a buffer of 50 feet? Because you're
Yeah,
gonna be
no,
in some cases right up next to the house.
we're not really gonna, so I figured you then it like visually, like, you know, walking along the edge of the road, essentially. We're not gonna deviate from the road because of the private land issue.
So you can rely on, let's say, 7.5 meters outside of that road on either side, half a transect.
Yep.
Yeah.
So you can declare the true dimensions in your report, but thank you for thinking of the fact that you do need to look over the fence, as it were. I don't think there's anything else to add. To me,
Yeah, I'll take a shot at it because I think I want to add something on. So in the case of 9901 Chronicle Heritage for P&M, monitoring plan for subsurface electrical lines in Sierra del Norte, I move that we conditionally approve the application with the stipulation that should trenching become necessary, rather than boring, that trenches will be documented through profile drawing as well as the full bits. And I would say using standard methodology for monitoring at that point, which at least the state, I think it specifies how much must be, you know, profiled per every unit of length. So, but my main point is, if there's a trench, don't just ignore it, profile it.
Second.
moved and seconded, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you, Heather.
Thank you.
Good luck busting rock.
Yep.
Administrative matters and communication.
Thank you, Chair F. I am, I'm going to be speaking on A and B. Kind of together here, items A and B. So we're gonna start with, the 2025 Santa Fe Preservation Heritage Awards. And that will be held on May 15th. That'll be a Thursday. And that will be at the San Miguel Chapel again. And would you be interested in presenting again, Chair Eck, or would you like one of your other colleagues on the committee to do that in your place? You did such a great job last year, by the way.
Everyone else has my blessing to step in if they wish, but I will allow my arm to be twisted by you.
Okay.
You're so gentle.
Thank you. That's appreciated.
If needed.
Okay, thank you so much. So, let me know if there's any volunteers. If not, I shall with Chair's.
I'd like to check to see what our own awards are, because it's the same month, like, on the.
Yes, and I
Often
know-
is on the same day.
right, we're looking out for that when that comes out as well, too. We like to attend the state awards. Secondly, we may have a conflict of interest in time for the code review and for code review and communication, and I would like the board to set a special meeting for that. And if April, what did we do? April 10th will work for you, Thursday, April 10th. And that day will be to discuss the code review. The code review and recommendation as
Phase
well.
one.
I'm sorry,
For phase one.
yes.
For
For
the
phase
Lime
one.
Mountain Code update.
And as well as make your vote for your nomination for the awards. And that will be, so,
Chair Eck, members of the ARC, I'll send you an email I did send an email with the nominations, with that form, but with the code, with phase one, I'll send another email to you all, so you'll have that on your,
yes, you'll get
you
packet.
could put it on your calendar.
It'll be an official meeting, you'll get packet.
Somebody who's not me, because I can't remember, tell me when the SAA meetings are.
It's close.
Yeah.
26th through 27th.
April 23rd to the 27th? April 20
Late-ish in April.
the third, yeah, right after.
Is- I'm gonna be there, not here, so
Oh,
10th wouldn't collide,
The
but,
April 10th would be, I think it's the second.
Yeah.
Thursday.
but it does, now that I'm thinking about the meeting, collide with our April meeting, perhaps.
I believe the 17th is our next, for the April meeting will be April 17th.
Let me verify, for ARC,
So as far as you know, that's not gonna conflict.
April 25th is the, April meeting for ARC.
Okay.
The conference is the 23rd to the 27th.
Head on collision,
So you guys will be out in the conference, so,
well, I will be,
I'll be here, as far as I know. I
Okay.
don't plan on going to the conference.
okay.
Think
Well, I will assure to make a call for quorum for that meeting.
okay,
Okay, and I will go ahead and with authorization, set the meeting for April 10th for a special meeting.
works for me.
All in favor?
Bye.
Okay, thank you.
it's the consensus, it's not a vote.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
But yeah, definitely, it's better than the alternative of trying to pack that stuff into. a
Right,
meeting.
absolutely.
Yeah, that's not gonna
So,
work.
and I believe that is all for staff communications.
Cool. Okay. Matters from the committee, anybody have anything to bring forward, warn us about? Beg for help on?
It's a list of a mile long for there, but, no.
Thank you for the reminder of our next meeting.
You're welcome, Chair.
He takes care of it. That brings us to the 11th item on our agenda.
Would we adjourn?
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Let me know when. Back on.
The March 27th is the next.
Yep, and then.